Great. Good morning. I would like to call the facility committee meeting to order this morning, noting that all committee members are here as well as administrative and our partner team are also here. I need approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I have no public comment. So we are here to talk about the new middle school, and we will even introduce this topic.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So thank you for agreeing to pulling together this meeting so quickly. Appreciate that. I'm going to have Rebecca start with the contingency tracker for the middle school. That's the third one there. Yep. So worked with Adam to come up with a similar format to what we used at Heritage. And so just to orientate everyone to this, basically there's a column called CM contingency, which means construction management contingency, or CM. That's the contingency that was referenced from the BOE presentations in the last couple of months. When they presented the bids and ultimately presented the guaranteed maximum price. That's the contingency that typically is used throughout the project for, the unknowns or project changes. And again, you've seen those at Heritage. The contingency column to the right called owner's contingency, just like at Heritage, we created that out of what we call value engineering. So we had that discussion in June on some of those items at the middle school that we felt like were reasonable changes to make. We took those savings and created an owner's contingency out of them. You could actually see what those are. Adam delineated them out. The three items that are listed there are the ones that we move forward with owner's contingency. Then ultimately, during our construction meetings, we do review what's called construction bulletins and project change orders. There are several of them that are pending. They typically take a bit of time to work through the process. It starts with the identification of an issue on the site, whether it's the site superintendent, or Adam, or someone else on their team. They then typically reach out to Epstein UN to request a clarification. Typically a new design will come if necessary, and then Adam and his team reaches out to subcontractors to get pricing. Depending on the level of the pricing, they're either presented to the superintendent, who has the ability to approve them up to $50,000, or to the facility committee if it's in the range of $50,000 to $99,900. Or if it's above that, we have to take that to the school board for approval. Administratively, we're just assuming the approval levels that the board approved for the Heritage are continuing forward. So we're still working under those approval levels. If at any point the board wanted to revisit that, just feel free to let us know and we can revisit those dollar amounts.
Steve, do we have to re-approve that for this program?
I think we could, sure. I mean, we could certainly put that on the agenda if that would be helpful to just clarify for this building that we're following the similar processes. We could certainly add that, Rebecca, under this committee for the August board agenda. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We can certainly do that. What happened last week, so to back up a little bit, is we have an environmental management company called EMC. So Jim has worked with, at the very end, Jim has worked with the district for a very long time, being our environmental management consultant. So as an example, when we were having the smells at Heritage at the end of the school year, Jim was the person we called, who came out with all of his equipment, put it throughout the building. In fact, Jim came to the staff meeting and helped talk the staff through what was going on there. But whenever it's been an environmental issue in any of the buildings, we have a long-standing relationship with EMC to monitor like asbestos, track it, know where it is, create our annual environmental plans, etc. So for this project, Vogel had a lot of conversations with Jim at EMC about Jim, managing or putting together the documents for where is all of the asbestos and the other materials in that building that needed to be removed. And as you know, Vogel presented a bid from Robinson Brothers, a Waunakee firm, to remove the hazardous materials, and then we also requested a proposal from them for the demolition. So that process has been ongoing, but last week, additional hazardous materials were observed on site. The dollar amount is likely to be in the 50 to 99 range. So Rebecca was kind enough to try to pull this meeting together so we could give the committee, and appreciate the fact that you were willing to spend an extra meeting here. I'd like to have either Adam and or Jim, probably Jim, explain, what has been maybe discovered and what that process looks like and what needs to be done. And then Adam can comment on the construction schedule and how this might hang them up or however that impacts what the team is doing. So Jim, do you want to just talk about the process a little bit and what happened last week?
Sure, certainly. As Steve had mentioned, as part of the requirements for demolishing any building, you have to go through and do a comprehensive survey, identify where all the hazardous materials are, put together an inventory of those particular items, and we went through a bidding process, bid that out and through our bid documents. The difficulty sometimes comes in is when we're doing surveys in an occupied building where we just can't make a ton of holes everywhere, find things. One of the biggest thing that we ran into, which is something that we just did not see, was in the north gym on the north end of the building. At one point, that entire gym ceiling was sprayed with a acoustical material that contains asbestos. So the entire 10,000 dome gym ceiling was sprayed with acoustical material that contains asbestos. Sometime 20-30 years ago or so, somebody removed most of it, but not all of it. And then they applied a skim coat plaster over the top of the material, as well as some acoustical panels on the ceiling. So if you would have walked into that gymnasium prior to us starting the abatement, you saw a nice rounded ceiling with a painted acoustic plaster ceiling and acoustical panels running down the middle. We did our surveys, we did our sampling, actually sampled the ceiling itself, did not find anything in there because that's about as far as we could go without doing destructive techniques. During the course of the demolition, we were required to open up walls, open up ceilings, do everything. We started pulling down those panels and pulling down the skim coated plaster. And we found a thin layer of asbestos containing material buried beneath the new building finishes. And when we punched holes in, we determined that it was present at varying degrees throughout the entire north gym ceiling. Since we sampled the building material, came back as asbestos. It's a type of material that needs to be removed prior to demolishing the building. So it's an unfortunate discovery, which we would have found it earlier. We didn't. It was one of those materials. It wasn't like it's floor tile underneath a flooring material or pipe insulation running down there. It was one of those things that was just difficult to find, and we didn't see that. So we worked with Robinson Brothers on getting pricing for that. Got a credit back from them on the limited amount of work that they had in the gym. Change order that they submitted, I think, was a good change order. Talked to Adam about what we normally expect for pricing on that, and I believe their pricing is about 20% lower than I normally expect, but it's still a big, significant chunk of something that we just didn't find during those original surveys. It's difficult materials to find. I have some pictures that I could share. I don't have those, they're loaded up on my phone, but it kind of shows what the gym ceiling looked like and what we found in the areas. But essentially, it was a asbestos containing material on the gym that had been partially removed somewhere 20-30 years ago and covered up in new building materials. So we got into demolition.
Right, but the reality of it, Jim, is even if it was identified, we would have had to remove it. Like either way.
Yes, but
Right. So like
budgeting and planning isn't there. I mean, it would have had to come out.
Right.
Yes.
So whether you had drilled through the ceiling months ago and identified it, or whether we identified it now, we had.
Yeah, and we did. We got up on the lift and we took core samples in the ceiling, it just, you know, as you see it a little bit more detail, it's hit and miss, and by luck, we didn't find it when we opened it up, so. And unfortunately, there's only so much we can do when the building's occupied. We can't punch holes and occupy gym ceilings, so. And then a second item, which is a much smaller item, on the south end of the building, there is some piping that is underneath the concrete slabs. There is it's a slab on grade building. I think I got some pictures of that one in the second change
On
order.
the second page. Yeah. The other one has the dollar amount on it. There you go. Thanks. So that was 64.
So this is the first one for the removal and of the plaster seals at gym stage and side rooms, about 8,000 square feet of material. They issued a credit for some of the work that they already had to do in the gym. And it turns out to be $64,000 change order. That plaster material, if you're dropping entire plaster ceiling, typically goes for about $10 to $12 a square foot. We did those out. Enough history on that to know what those go for. So we're offering something about $8 a square foot, which is partially obviously is because they're already on site, but they're also doing the best that they can to help us with this.
Can you explain the process that you go through in doing this? And what is the legal process? Just a little bit.
They contain the entire gymnasium, which they were going to do anyway. So they seal off the plastic doors, seal off the doors with plastic, seal off the HVAC system, put poly walls in place and everywhere. And then you're going to physically go up on man lifts and drop that plaster ceiling, which is 20 feet up in the air. So we'll be cutting out the plaster itself is on black mesh held up by black iron. So it's a wire mesh ceiling, so we're physically going to just drop that ceiling down to the ground. Wrap and contain all the materials and dispose of them as asbestos containment materials, asbestos waste. So it's a pretty significant undertaking to drop a 8,000 square foot ceiling that's 20 feet up in the air.
And then you were referencing a second additional discovery through the demo. Do you want to talk about that one?
Sure. Second area is something we still don't know the full extent of right now. We will not know. We will know soon. The south end of the building is a slab on grade construction with multiple additions. There's probably 5, 6, 7 different additions to that building. At some point, when they were adding on an addition, they connected some of the heating and plumbing system from one addition to the new addition by actually putting piping underneath the concrete slabs. So beneath this floor here to connect that part of the building to that part of the building when they put the new thing on. Typically, they'll have, that building has heating tunnels underneath that are 3 foot by 4 foot tunnels that we crawl through and do rolls where they run all mechanicals. In this particular case, they put a conduit underneath the slab to connect the 2 different heating tunnels. And there is no physical way to see it. There's no physical way to get at it, short of when we pull that concrete slab up and tip it up, there's going to be a piping that's buried in the dirt in the ground. It appears that we may have 6, 7, 8 of those in various areas through the slabs. We work with Robinson right now, and once they're pulling their slab as part of the demolition, to determine exactly where those are. Some focus of those 2 change order 2.
How do you create an environment so that this doesn't go all like the gym?
When you have transite pipe buried in the ground like this, the protocols for the DNR are simply regulated area, which means barrier tape and warning signs. The demolition contractor has to bust up the slab carefully, peel it back so it has not to disturb the piping as much as possible. The abatement crew comes in there and wraps the piping as it's laying in the soil, picks it up in whole pieces and disposes of the lunch. So it's done within regulated.
So you don't know the cost of that because you don't know.
I have Robinson out there. We had, did our best guess to estimate how many there would be. We had a time and material estimate of not to exceed $12,000. Hoping that's generous, but you know, it just depends on how many runs of those that we have. There's two photos in there, so. Here, the first photo on the left there is a heating system tunnel that we're looking through, and then if you kind of core through that wall a little bit, on the second picture there. About 6 to 8 inches in, you can see just that little lip right there. All the heating pipe runs under slab, and that conduit, if you will, that runs the heating pipes and water pipes from one side of the building, rather is asbestos containing conduit underneath the slab. Once we get into demolition, those are going to be exposed. And it is a very abnormal construction technique, as Adam can attest to.
Well, like you said, you expected everything to be in the tunnels,
Yeah.
which is where you identified a bunch of abatement asbestos that those pipes weren't expected, so. But the reason that we had them put together this price quickly with the not to exceed is that's the first area we need them to finish up. So we're kind of right behind them with our work, so we want to get this in front of everyone today. From a schedule perspective with both of them, the first change order, even though it's in the north. The phase of work abatement comes through and then demolition follows, and we're kind of right behind them with the new construction. I think you said you have about 2 weeks of work for that mount ceiling.
They're gonna try to get it done a little quicker, yeah.
So both of these, we need them to proceed. I think you guys asked for, hoping to start this week, just to kind of keep the flow of work going, so it doesn't actually slow up everyone behind them. Which I think if we get the approvals, this work can be done in sequence and not have an impact on the schedule, so.
You need a motion to approve.
So we're looking for a motion to approve change order 1 and 2 in total. They fall in the range of what has been this committee's purview. So in the past, this would not have to go to the board. It would go through this committee, which to your point, Jack, we can confirm the August board meeting. But we would be requesting approval of change order 1 and 2 from Environmental Management Consulting. Where that would then go is, you saw when I started the meeting, there's that change order log. That would be applied against the 3.3 million in contingency that we're setting aside for the project. So we would apply it in that manner. Typically, we've used the owner contingency for changes that administration has requested. So an example of that at Heritage was the principal requested a black fence in the far southeast corner of the property to protect it from kids possibly running into the neighboring farm. So that was our request to put that fence up, so we used owner contingency. So since this is something that came up during construction, we would request that it comes out of that 3.3 million. And so the request would be for this committee to approve change order 1 and 2 to allow the project to move forward. If it's approved by this committee, then the paperwork can proceed and construction can proceed as planned for the next couple of weeks. And we'll put it on the board as an FYI, probably under the agenda item that Jack recommended, where we get confirmation of these dollar amounts for this project.
So we're looking for a motion.
Yes, do you anticipate anything more?
I do not. I do not. We are through the south end of the building and that second change order is the only thing that I expect on the south end. We are through the middle portion of the building, the old intermediate school. That is mid-80s construction. We've already done all abatement. We've already started the internal demolition. Don't find anything there. On the north end, the base abatement is all done, which means we've opened up all the walls, opened up all the floors. Everything that we could possibly see is done. Could there be something below grade that we can't see? Maybe, but I don't know what it would be. I don't anticipate the same conduit situation that we had on the south side and on the north side. building construction. We have a basement on the west end and on the east end, and the boiler room in the center, there's tunnels that go all the way around. There should not be any voids that they needed to run anything differently like they did in the other building, so short of anything below grade, I don't know.
So,
Motion to approve as presented. Second with 1 and 2.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
And we still, thank you, we still want to keep the meeting we already have on the schedule. We do have a couple of agenda items we were planning to have on that meeting, so I think it's early first week in August.
Yeah,
Is
next
that
week.
next Friday, is that Rebecca?
August, Tuesday, 6th.
Okay, yeah, we still have some agenda items we were hoping to bring before you that date as well, so, you know, if we're okay with it, we'll keep that meeting as well for next week.
Just a different question, is the elementary still on the schedule to turn over this week?
I will let John answer that. He's been planning for that.
Yep, absolutely. They're prepared to turn that building over to us, the morning of August 1st. Actually, they'll have everything ready, July 31st, and of course, to get that CO for August 1st, coming over.
Perfect.
Just a continuing, and the tyranny portion of the trail looks like it's done. And where's the portion?
Yeah, great question. So at 9 this morning is the pre-construction meeting down at the village hall, so I'm gonna go down there. Right now, the village is intending to execute a contract to have it done by the end of August. Vogel has requested that the village's contractor actually finish the project on our side of the property because the paving is fundamentally going to be done. So just for efficiency of cost, to have the village's contractor just finish that small part that's on our property. So I'm going down there at 9 to reiterate that we want to work with them to get that done. Monica has approved the completion of the path, but there were some changes that need to be made to the utility boxes. So she approved that. So as of right now, everything is lined up to be completed by the first day of school, which is surprising.
Yeah,
Right? Just
amazing.
when Jack threw that goal out there last spring, I thought, wow, that is a big goal, but
Cannot believe how
I
that
mean,
property.
it's moving, so.
So did the utility company actually pay for moving the utilities?
So as of right now, in order to get them moved, we had to agree to pay them to move the charter and the TDS. However, we do want to continue that discussion, but we knew that in order to have the path ready by the 31st, we needed to do that. Our civil engineer believes that there is some TDS equipment and property outside of the easement on our site, where she suggested we maybe might want to have a conversation with attorneys regarding that. However, there's no way the path would have gotten done if we stopped to engage in a discussion over that. So our priority was to get the path in. At some point, we'll circle back with this committee and say, do you want to pursue this topic or not any further? Because obviously there'd be legal costs involved. Basically, TDS has gone outside of the easement area on our existing site. But they would not begin to move the utility box until the village agreed to sign a purchase order, and then we agreed with the village that if there is a bill, that we would cover it since it's on our property. But we had to do that in order to have the whole thing done. So I think more to come on that one, but at least for now, it's going to be done and the boxes are going to be moved and the path will be done. So that's the positive, is the student should have a clear path all the way to school. That then means the new crosswalk at Ganser can be installed and be ready to go, because that crosswalk sends students over to the path. And so the path needs to be done for the crosswalk to work, so it's all coming together.
It's amazing how much dirt is being moved in the whole hill.
Yeah.
You know, you come down Holiday before and it looked like an ocean, you know?
Now you can see those homes. It's just
It's amazing.
amazing.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you. So I would need a motion to adjourn.
So, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Hopefully, it will smoothly sail through now.